Afternoon, everybody. Yes. Okay. We call to order, and we would start the proceedings with prayer led by Pastor Randy Rodney.
Let us stand, please, as we pray. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. We thank you, Father God, that you've brought us here by your mercy. We could have been anywhere else. But in your economy, in your business, in your leadership, in your sovereign will, you decided that we'd be gathered here. Gathered here for a very important purpose. To learn, to dissect, to grow, and Father God, to contribute largely to the growth of this beautiful nation. I ask, Lord, that you will give wisdom, that you will grant understanding, that you will guide and you will guard what will be said here today. You will cause every one of us collectively to be better for this gathering. I thank you for the Dominica Business Forum and the work that they have done over the years. And I ask, Lord, that you will increase their vision and grant them, Father God, the capacity to keep working towards the good and the betterment of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Bless this meeting as we participate together, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor Rodney. Good afternoon to everyone. Let me say a special good afternoon to Miss Anthea Joseph, Chief Elections Officer, and Miss Julian, who is the Public Relations Person at the Electoral Office. We advertised and we informed you that Mr. Duncan Stowe had in fact accepted to be with us here this afternoon, but earlier this morning, in fact, since yesterday, he called and told me to inform us that he wasn't feeling well. However, if he feels better, he would have come today. And this morning, he called to say that he couldn't make it because he really isn't feeling well. He has, however, indicated that he would be willing to join us live on a Zoom, and he may be able to make a contribution. But still, so this is the situation with Mr. Stowe. And so on his behalf, I just want to apologize. So let me also, on the head table, this is Mr. Daryl Buck, the chairperson, president of the Dominica Business Forum. Today's activity is organized as a continuation of the work that the Dominica Business Forum has been doing on electoral reform since 2019, when we engaged organizations such as the OECS, the OAS, Commonwealth Secretariat, CARICOM, and we actually came up with a comprehensive document on the way electoral reform should be going in Dominica. And so Mr. Bob will give an overview of what we have been doing from the Dominica Business Forum point of view. And then we will give a short overview of the purpose of this meeting. And as you see, we are not using the podium. We just want it to be interactive, to be as interactive as possible. You know, the questions, answers, and we're hoping that we can leave here this afternoon with some recommendations as to how we move forward for free and fair elections in Dominica and a clear, clean voters list, and how we can enhance the registration and confirmation process. Okay, so with these few words, I just want to hand over to Mr. Bob with his opening remarks.
Thank you, Severin. Thank you. First of all, let me say thanks to Pastor Rodney for such an inspiring prayer. The Dominica Business Forum, Inc. welcomes all to this very important gathering this evening. Um, we are a private sector organization, an umbrella organization which represents the DHTA, the DMA. Well, the DHTA would be the Dominica Hotel and Tourism Association, the DMA, the Dominican Manufacturers Association, the Dominica Employers Federation, the Dominica, they call it DCAD, that would be the Builders and Contractors Association, and the DCSI, Dominica Coalition of Service Industries that I represent. The Dominica Business Forum Inc. was formed in 2012 and registered under the laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica as a non-profit organization. The DBF has been very active over the years in organizing smaller events, or similar events rather. Our goal has always been to conscientiously bring opposing views on governance in the same room for productive discuss. Thank you. Our efforts include a number of national economic conferences that include the hosting of the president of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica in 2016, the DDBF mediated between government and the opposition following the February 7th incident in Dominica. We all know, we can recall what the 7th of February was like back then. The DBF has been championing the electoral reform efforts in Dominica, which included a number of consultations. Our major activity around that was on January 22nd, 2025, when we hosted the Prime Minister at the PSU, and where we had a very fruitful dialogue with the public. We were the only non-governmental organization that had continuous consultations with Sir Dennis Byron, former president of the Caribbean Court of Appeal and government's consultant for reviewing the legislation on electoral reform. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to your active participation following the presentations of the various presenters. Our expectations this evening are such that we will have a cordial, respectful, meaningful dialogue that we hope will transcend into the overall development of our beloved Dominica. Our focus this evening will be on the following: the resumption of voter registration, the impact of the suspension of eligible voters, preparedness for general elections, concerns regarding the confirmation process, support for electoral reform and public engagement, the importance of voting to democracy, commitment to free and fair elections, recommendations, and call to action. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Without further ado, I shall pass the microphone on to the next presenter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bob. Okay. The activity today is actually going to be in two segments. The first segment is going to be dealing strictly with the electoral reform, electoral registration, voter registration, and voter confirmation. We will be getting the update from the Chief Elections Officer. Mr. Stu has not joined us on the link, so it's still trying to see if we get him. But I am sure that the Chief Elections Officer can do justice to the topic. So, and the second segment, we are going to deal with as you know, there are a number of issues concerning the economy and the country, but we're going to concentrate on two. One with Crispin Gregory, if he can make it, and also with Annie Edwards, who is a physical planner. So after we wrap up the session with the Chief Elections Officer, then we will about whether she would want to remain for the rest of the day, but she would be free, and then we could also, she could also get leave at that time, because the second part has nothing to do with registration and confirmation. Okay, so at this stage, let me welcome and thank Ms. Joseph, for accepting our invitation to be here today. We are hoping that we can have a lively, cordial, respectful discussion, and when we complete the process, When we complete the discussions today, we'll have some tangible recommendations that she could take to the Electoral Commission in moving forward to enhance our electoral process in Dominica. So let me also say that after Ms. Joseph's presentation, Mr. Gregor Nassif, who has been very vocal with his written words recently, will also be given an opportunity to make some recommendations and observations as to how he sees the process going. Okay, so with these few words, let me welcome Ms. Joseph to update us with a presentation. Thanks, Ms. Joseph.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to be able to clarify some of the issues that you are concerned about. I have been following the media closely with every comment that have been made pertaining to the electoral reform, and I'm happy to be here today. I want to apologize on behalf of Mr. Duncan Stowe, who wanted to be here but is not feeling well today. But I'm happy to be here to clarify some issues and to be straightforward with you about what is happening. And first, let me say that there's nothing being hidden at the electoral office. As I always say, persons are free to come to see me. If you have any issues, you want direction, you want clarification, I welcome everyone to have a word or to call if you have any, you need to dialogue on any matter to do with the electoral reform. And I'm not shy of meeting with anyone, or there's nothing, no hidden agenda at the electoral office. And what we are trying to do is really to bring a system where the public can, trust us and trust what we are doing. And what we're doing is not biased, it's balanced in every way. I've had a few persons come to me to sit and talk to me from the opposition side. I've welcomed them, I've had discussions, I've clarified things. So I want to be fair and open with you this afternoon, and any questions that you have. And I think the public, they have a wrong view of some of the matters pertaining to electoral reform. And I hear the comments, I hear certain things, and these are not based in the law at all. And we can only be guided by the law. There are things, we cannot do anything that is outside of the law. We are guided. It's like, almost like, I have it, I refer to it, sometimes I tell them, where's my Bible? I have it on my desk, and we refer to it all the time for every matter, to bring clarification or to be guided as to whatever decisions that we take. We are governed by an electoral commission, and we know of that, headed by the chairperson, who is Duncan Stowe, and legal matters are always referred to the lawyers who we meet on a regular basis. The commission, I sit at meetings, and decisions are just not taken just like that. I am guided by the commission, who actually makes decisions for the electoral process. I mean, for the office as well, administrative matters. I always have to seek guidance. There are very few things that I can do on my own, but I'm guided by the electoral commission. And we sit at meetings, we deliberate and discuss and come to conclusions, and finalize matters. So I just wanted to put that out there, to let you know. First, let me begin by saying that the confirmation period began on October 15th, 2025, and will go up to October 15, 2026. The law allows for us to extend for further 3 months in the event that the commission feels that it should be extended. So I want to just throw that out there that we are aware that after October 15, 2026, that the commission or the law makes accommodation for an additional 3 months of extension. Now, the law was confirmed in March 2025, and there was a list that had to be printed immediately on the confirmation of the law. That was done, and then within 6 weeks of that, there was another revised list that had to be printed. That was done as well, and this is the list that we have been using. And in the case, in the event that an election is called during the confirmation period, because the law makes clear room and accommodation for election to be called during the confirmation period at any time. The list that we refer to is the list of May 2025, plus the supplementary list, which will be made up of new voters. Now, I heard statements in the media that, or I read of comments where persons were saying that their names, they had not seen their names appear on the list for registration. Now, there are quarterly lists called supplementary lists where the new voters, that's the list where the names of the new voters are published. We also do a list every month. We do a list for confirmation, those who have been approved. And that is posted on the website every 15th of every month. We print the previous month, and that is done on the website for those who have been confirmed and approved. And this is separated apart from the supplementary list, which is to be printed every quarter. Now, we passed March 1st, which was the first quarter, we had not started registration. The next list, supplementary list, is due on June 1st. So voters, new voters, will see their names on the list as of June 1st, which will be printed. So far, we have had a total of 14,192 persons who have applied for confirmation and 668 persons who have applied for registration thus far. Now, confirmation, it's a process. The first process is to go to the confirmation center. We have set up various confirmation centers throughout the island of Dominica, some constituencies having more than one because of how they are, they are located. So persons can go into the confirmation center and do the application. There is an application form that has to be filled out, and following that, your witness has to sign. What we do when you come into the confirmation center, first thing we do, we use the list of May 2025, and we check the list to see if you are a voter on the list of May 2025. So if your name is not on that list, you're not entitled to be confirmed. Once your name is on that list, the person that you have brought for as a witness, all the details are also checked on the voters list, because the person has to be in the same polling district as you. Following that, the form is filled out, it's signed by your witness, and then you proceed to the data entry part. At the centers, if you have been confirmed or you have gone through the process already, you'll notice that there are two screens at the centers. So one for the person doing the data and one for the person, for the voter. So while the information is being entered, you can already read that screen and see the details that is being placed from the form. Now, if the form looks something like this, okay, the application form. So persons can follow the computer to see if the details are being entered correctly, like your date of birth, the spelling of your name, etc. Your IDs are also checked to see if it's valid, and it's scanned, and your photo is taken, after which you sign the marquee with an electronic pad, and the information is saved. As soon as it's saved, it's uh, it's saved on the server at the electoral office. So that is the process. Now, I have also heard that there are a number of persons who have had concerns about they applying for confirmation and have not yet seen their names on the confirmation list of those approved. This is a process that has to take place. And some people find that the process is it's too long, or probably it's too much being done. But we are compiling a new voters list with the confirmation process, and we are taking our time, or we are taking due caution while approving persons. So it goes to a first level of verifiers. What they do, they check the database along with the form, the application form, and the ID, and they ensure that the person is a voter on the voters list. They check also the witness is a voter in the same polling district. They are on the list as well, and they check the IDs to make sure that the names, all three names, match up. What is on the database, what's on the form, and what is on the ID. Now, we have found where persons have nicknames on the list, and now they come with the ID. So these persons were required to have an affidavit done at the time of their process. So we look for that as well. Following that, we have a second level of verifiers who go through the information again, because somebody working on a database and forms for the entire day could miss something. So we have a second level who checks, who does the verification, and these are the more senior persons who have been at the electoral office for a number of years. They have experience. We have somebody who have been there for like 20 years, have been dealing with these issues. We have another person 12 years. So we have about 4 second level verifiers who go through the information and give an approval. Following that, when I go to the database, I have a queue. So I looked for what is in my queue, and I check through it. They have their areas where their notes, they can put in notes. If they have issues or they have questions, their notes. So I go through the application on the system, and I check through to see if there are any notes, and then I go through the documents. I can look at them, I can compare them, and then I give an approval of the applicant. So this is the process, and you might say it's a long process, but we are ensuring that when we present the new list at the end of the confirmation period or after the confirmation period, that this list is, it's a lot has gone in due diligence, and due process has gone into every person who have been confirmed or approved. So this is the process that we go through. We have brought in a number of persons, new persons, to assist with the first level of the verification process, and we are working very long hours at the office to push through the list. Now, one of the things probably that could bring a quicker approval probably is an electronic signature, but the law does not make accommodation for an electronic signature, which I think would have been easier for me to approve. I have to sign every receipt. So you are aware that the what is involved in that whole process. We are trying to see if we could have this, the electronic signature, pending that we have gone through our contractor and we have asked for an upgrade or an amendment in the system that we have. So in other words, it would make it quicker for me to do the approvals. So we are in the process, they're working on it. Shortly, we should have that new tweak in the software that would make it a little quicker for the approvals. So you should see more than the names that you see, you'll see more names now on the new list as soon as that is complete. We have also listened to the commission has listened to the views of the public in regards to those persons who do not have IDs and it's difficult for them to, go through the process without the ID. And if you know, the law has been amended to accommodate a passport size photo notarized by a justice of peace or notary public or commission of oaths, along with the affidavit and a birth certificate for persons who do not have IDs in place. I will stop here and I.
I know Mr. Nassif has quite a number of concerns. So maybe at this stage, Gregor, you could. Oh, yeah, whichever way. Yes, well, we are straight into the quick questions and answer questions. Yes, Simeon Joseph.
Mentioned that the law doesn't make allowance for an electronic signature, but you also mentioned that you are trying to see how that can be done to facilitate electronic signatures.
Well, we are asking for advice.
So it's okay, advice.
We are asking for advice.
The
Yes.
process, because I was going to ask, is that outside of the law, or is that within the ambit of seeking an amendment to the law to allow that to happen?
Well, we're asking for advice. I'm putting into that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jackie?
Yeah, I didn't hear you mention, I may have missed it. What about people who have mobility issues or they might be sick?
Yes, yes.
Have any provisions for them?
Yes, we have 5 mobile kits at present. And what we do, we announce with an announcement when we are going to a community. And one of the things that we do before we just launch into a community, we normally ask, well, we collect data at the office. So we have 2 hotlines and we ask persons to call in to register the persons who are, have mobility issues and so on. And persons also register names at the confirmation centers. So what we do, we check, first of all, we call the persons to find out whether they have documents that they are using. We check the names on the voters list to ensure that the names are not like nicknames, etc., to know if we need a justice of peace on site with us. And once we have confirmed that these persons are ready and have IDs, we go into that community and we go house to house with the names, and that's what we use the mobile kit to do the process for those persons. What we are going to do now, we were doing it like we were putting an announcement like weekly. But what we do, we did an entire schedule for the entire nation, and we putting it on Facebook, on MO, on DNO, on our platform as well, and other platforms that persons can see exactly when we will be going to certain communities so they can get prepared. Because what I found in the early stage of using the mobile kit, we would go out to the communities and we'd go to homes, and then you would find that the persons were not ready. Like probably they didn't comb their hair, they didn't put proper clothes, so they had, because they have to take a photo. They did not have IDs in place. So a witness as well. So we found that we wasted a little time there. So what we are doing now, we're putting out a schedule in advance. So persons can already prepare in advance. They know exactly what time we're going to be in that community. They can register names with the office or with the confirmation centers. We have also used the mobile kits for accessibility to some communities like Watermaven and Mount Prosper. I think we did Tatan, we did Girodale, Egliston, we did Dodan, we did a number of communities, Bells as well, with the mobile kits because accessibility to the confirmation center may be a little difficult. So what we did, we brought the kits and we announced a day where persons could come, and we intend to do some more. We have been getting some requests to go to Stock Farm, Tarish Pit, Campbell area, Warner. So what we're going to do, we will be putting out some announcements too, and we will be going closer to the persons so that they can complete their process.
Steve, it would be good if everybody could use the mic. Okay, because we have some people online that may having some.
Yes, yes. My concern, I have a few concerns. One, of course, is yeah. I think we need to find a solution for that column. I'm not too sure how we can do that. One, the history of this process was very controversial, and I'm seeking to address the whole confidence in the commission carrying this process. And one of the reasons I came here because I was going to hear from the chair of the commission. I'm concerned about the sense of unity among the commission, the confidence of the public in the commission to be communicating a single message to the population, to the voters. And for me, who went in to confirm 2 months ago, or a little above that, you try to address the process. But I'm still concerned because there appeared to be no redress, and that has been communicated clearly that I could go on a website, I could call a hotline to find out where is my confirmation. And if you had 50,000 people who already applied to be confirmed, what capacity do you need at your office to ensure that you can meet certain timelines? Because you had 14,000, but you have approved only a third. And I'm thinking, if you're going to meet your target by October, it means you need to be addressing some of those snags to ensure the process moves along. That's my concern. And I think there needs to be something in the system that allows a person to have confidence. Listen, is any shenanigans going down there that some people are approving and other people are being bypassed? I'm just putting it just like Dominicans would think. All right. Okay.
One that was so that you don't get lost in the whole discussion. I want to say that the system that we have at the office, the software, was designed to review at random. So when we started the process, we could not. That's why some persons are saying that they confirm in October and they have the senior name, and somebody went in March and they saw the name on the list. We had no way, it was giving us names at random for verification, and it was specifically designed like that. And then when we started hearing the complaints of the public, we went back to the software persons and we said, can we have it by date order rather than at random? So for example, first in, first out, rather than just pulling names at random. That's because you would find somebody who have done the process in October, their name may never come out until maybe June because the computer is generating names at random. So we brought the concerns to the contractors, and what they did, we are now able to do it by date order. So I cannot really go in the system and just pull up John Brown date order. So every name that comes in on that particular date. So let us say I am on the 15th of October, all the names, and that is how we work. The capacity, you asked about capacity. We have brought in, we had a backlog. We had a backlog at first. So we have a number of verifiers that we have brought in. Let me see, we had 3, then we brought in another 5, so that we have 8 first line verifiers. And I must say that we do not have a backlog of applications from the first level. Okay? So let us clear that up. We have some applications from the the second level verification. Now, we cannot just bring in persons from anybody from the public or a new employee to do this second level verification. As I said, we are using seasoned persons in that process, the second level, and these are the staff of the electoral office who have worked there for a number of years and have been involved in the process. They are working as fast as they can, and to ensure that we're not making errors. And it is not a system. Actually, there's an audit trail on the system. Okay, there's an audit trail on the system. So we have taken oaths. We are professionals, and electoral office, we are not supposed to show any bias to any person. When we review, I'm not even looking to see XYZ. We're looking for information, data, spelling of names, date of birth is entered correctly, the IDs are there, they're keeping in the law, that the witness is from the same polling district. And I just imagine that you have a number of applications to review a day. You're not going to have time to play around. You want to get through a quota for the day, of verification. So, and the staff at the electoral office, we offer, we are balanced in what we do, as I see. So it's not a matter of looking to see where we can not approve somebody. We have had an issue to do, I must mention, of the some of the photos that we have taken, okay, that from the centers, from the earlier clock. So we have now included an aspect of where we can call a person in to take a new photo. When we started, I think the staff got training, but the first month or so, you a little not so aqua, you just coming into the process. We have had some photos that were not really up to scratch, okay? And we have now to call the people in to take new photos. So we have added that aspect to the software. So if the photo is not, presentable, that we can call you in to take photos. I forgot to mention that on the cards issue, I know a number of persons have concerns about the card. Sorry to just move away from. Have I answered your question? Okay. The cards issue, we want to clarify that matter with you. We had begun printing cards, and I can show you, I brought samples here for you today, that when we started approving, we started printing cards. We started printing cards, okay? And I will explain. When I saw the quality of cards, I was not satisfied. I said we could not present that to the public. No, you have a law. You have a law, and you have a sample in the law of the card. Okay? So you give the contractors the exact specification from the law to print your cards. Everybody can see, right? We printed a number of cards, they're much more. So these cards are to be discarded. Okay? I want to let you know. I just wanted you to see the samples that we're not delaying anybody in any fact from getting their cards. There is a sample in the law of cards, and we signed off on that the sample in the law, and this is what we got from the sample. So when I saw it and the commission had a look at it, we were not satisfied with the quality. We could not give that to the public. So what we did, we had to redesign a card. Okay? We had to redesign, and now we have to amend. If you go to the law, I can show you the photo of the card that's in the law. It looks exactly like that. This is the sample, and this is what we give to the developers who were doing the ID system. So we got these. We were not satisfied, so we had to redesign the card, and we now have to amend the section with the voter ID card. Okay, we had to reorder another batch of cards so that we could issue these cards is to last 10 years. 10 years according to the law. So this is the issue with the cards. Cards will be finalized, well, by June, at the end of June, you will have cards. Now, one of the things that the contractors had said to us from the beginning when we started the process, they had asked that we do not print cards during the process, but we would print the cards at the end of the confirmation process. That's what they had asked. They had done that in many other countries, that they had done the same system, and they advised us to do the cards at the end, so that, for example, if a person would move from one constituency to the next, like you got confirmed, you got your card, and you decided you want to transfer to somewhere else, that you wouldn't have to go through the process of printing cards. So they did advise that we would do the cards at the end of the confirmation period, and the commission decided no, we needed to have the cards as soon as approvals were done. Okay, so we started printing the cards, but we were not satisfied with the quality. So now we have reordered the cards, and the cards will be here by at least June month, and give and take. At least the suppliers have promised that we will have the cards by June. So we are proposing to the public that by the end of June, that you will have your ID cards.
Yes, Dr. Fontaine, yes. We have additional mics.
Okay, thank you
Yes.
very much. Good afternoon to the head table. Good afternoon, Ms. Joseph, and thank you for what you're doing. We understand it's a very difficult process. I have three issues that I want to raise with you. Let me begin by saying I think it was a good thing that you announced the stadium part of it, to have persons outside of the constituencies to get a chance to register. I think that's a very, very good thing, and I want to commend the commission on that. But we have a number of villages where we do not have confirmation centers. And in visiting those villages, the persons are telling me point blank, they will not leave Mont Prosper and go to Trafalgar. They will not leave Warner and go to Maho. You know, when you have those all over. My question to you is, and I know you mentioned about the mobile centers, but it seems that was more focused on those short-ins, persons who, under the law, are supposed to be visited. But we're talking here about the average person who just feels the effort that has to be engaged in to move from where they are to the center. Could not, for example, as was done on a trial basis in Mont Prosper, have the center move the activity for 1 or 2 days in those villages and take care of that? Because we are getting a lot of resistance from persons in those villages who do not want to move. Okay, so that is one. The other question is on the verification issue. I listened very attentively, and I'm thinking of a process where your name is on the list. Mm-hmm. You bring a witness. You have a government ID. If you get to the confirmation center And for example, you have a name that was your maiden name, and then you're married, you have a different name. They tell you right there and then to get a marriage certificate to verify the name. All of that is happening at the local level. Why this protracted verification? That seems to me, if you're going on that pace, we will not have, within the end of the confirmation period, we will not likely have a full list of persons who are confirmed. That's the second question. And the third question has to do with the registering of persons. A number of registering officers have indicated to me that they've been asked to turn in their books and whatever to the confirmation office or to the electoral office. The question is, what is exactly happening with the registration? Are persons supposed to now register at the confirmation centers, or are you making arrangements as were done in the past? Because when you think about it, when you register as a voter, you bring in your birth certificate, you register. That list goes to the Electoral Commission. It is accepted. You're part of the list. Now we have a process to verify you on those lists, and it's taking all of that time. And secondly, as I said, with the registration, what is going to happen now? Because it seems that a number of persons of registered officers who were in the villages, who know the persons who are there, the 18-year-olds and so on, it seems that they have now been removed. Can you explain to us exactly what is happening with that process? Thank you.
Okay, with regards to the communities where there are no the villages that you mentioned, I mentioned that a little earlier, that we have a plan that we're going in to some of the villages like Warner. We will be at Warner. We actually have a date for that, which we will publish. We will use the mobile kit to conduct confirmation for that day for everybody within the Warner community. We're going to do that in various communities. We go to Campbell, we go to Warner, and we probably proposing to do it on a Sunday, because we figure out that on a Sunday most persons are home and they can take a walk to the wherever we set up. So we are proposing to do that. So we have already done a schedule, and we have been getting feedback from persons which areas that they feel that we need to go to. The other question was about verification. Mhm. Okay, so what happened with the system now? Because the registration system is now an electronic system, so it's no longer where you have a book and you could write or do a written application. It's now a systematic one where you have to take your photo and you have to enter the data, just like the confirmation process. The registration is the same, a similar process. So therefore, we had to audit, or we had to go through the list of registering officers that we had. And we sent out, for that matter, from the beginning, when we were setting up confirmation centers, we had applied, we had invited all the registering officers, those who were available, if they could make their sales, if they were interested. These are the first persons that we looked at to work at the confirmation centers. And what we did a survey of persons who were computer literate, because this is a different ball game, and you have to take a photo, you have to scan documents, you may have to make copies. And we sent out a survey to all the officers to find out who was computer literate. And from that feedback that we got, when we were ready for registration, we used that same list and the survey that we did. And we had to appoint new persons, because some persons could not use the computer. So they can write, but they may not be able to use the computer. They may not even be able to take a proper photo. So we had to look for persons with these skills, the necessary skills. And that is how we were able to appoint new registering officers. Now, if you probably check the list of registering officers, that is the person in charge of the constituency registration in the constituency. Those persons, most of them were assistant registering officers. So they had experience with the registration process before. So what we did, we just appointed them registering officers. If you look at the list that we have, a majority of them were assistant registering officers. Some of the registering officers, they were, if you know, they were of age. We had some persons of 60 something, 70 years who were not able to do the new system. So this is how we had to, as we wrote to all the registering officers and we asked them to come, bring in the documents that you have, because they were the old documents from the old law. And that is what happened. So we appointed new persons and the assistant registering officers. What we did to accommodate registration, because as you know, you need a device, you need a computer, you need a printer, you need a scanner, and a means of taking a photo for registration. So what we are doing the registration at the confirmation centers for now. The commission will decide at the end of the confirmation period if we go back to the old system of having the device at a person's home, where like how it used to be, where you have assistant registering officers and registering officers who do registration at their homes. They will decide whether we go back to that process or whether we will be setting up offices at various locations where registration can be done, where we can appoint registering officers. So this is because it's a new law, it's a whole new system. So we cannot proceed as normal as before with the system that we had. And I'm sure you will agree with me from what I've just explained to you. So I do not know what decision the commission will take at the end of it, but what we have been doing, I have been contacted various Caribbean islands who have gone through the electoral reform, and to find out what practices they have been using with regards to registration. And I will present it to the commission at the end of the period, and they will look at it and decide whether they would like to have it in a modernized way at, set offices in different constituencies, or it's going to be at homes, or what is the best practice for that process. Mhm. You said that by the end of the you're concerned that at the end of the confirmation period, we may not be finished with the verification process. And that's why I said that we have been speaking to our contractor, the company who created this system, and we are looking to do a little upgrade so that we can have the verification in a much quicker way than we are at the pace, so that we can have it. Because what we also did an analysis. The company did an analysis, and what they did, they presented data as to at which rate we are verifying and approving, and what rate we need to be at to have it completed by the end of the period. And that's why we are doing the updates. We're trying to do the updates so that we can have the approvals much quicker.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. And thanks again, Ms. Joseph, for being here. There are some questions that I came here with for Mr. Stu, actually, in his capacity as chairman of the commission. And I do not want to use somebody's word to say that they are above your pay grade. However, you started by speaking about the question of trust. And my friend Steve spoke about the process by which we got here. Let me be a little more direct. The commission proposed and agreed to a particular law. and then came like Zacchaeus at midnight or Nicodemus at midnight, and then have an SRO to change the law.
Which sections are you?
And then, I will give you the section in a while, and then after much talking, goes back now and to say that we changed again, and I'm talking about the ID, right? When you say one thing to people and do something else and change it, they question you and begin to distrust your action. So already the process had its challenges with trust. And then you have a law passed, and as soon as you have the law passed, as though somebody said, oops, let's change that. Let's say that we are not going to accept this affidavit of identity for registration. And then you have this thing going. So I think we need to begin to do some work in terms of being blunt with people. The second thing I have for you before I ask my question with regard to the confirmation is the fact that we are at a juncture where most of us, and I'm sure most people in here, are in a state of flux with this confirmation, wondering, well, when are you going to finish this thing? This is month 6. We are, what, 4 days shy of 6 months since you started. You've said to us that to date you've had 14,000 few hundred applications. I'm not even concerned yet with the aspect of the verification that you spoke about. Looking at the population of Dominica, we probably will have 45,000, roughly voters who should be eligible to vote. That means that we have done 1/3. We have received 1/3 of the applications for confirmation halfway through the confirmation period. If we move at that rate, it means that we will not have 100% confirmation for the next 8 to 9 months, statistically, right? And then we have the approval process. So here's what, is becoming a headache. We've had elections on a bloated list for several cycles. The law, the House of Assembly Act, says that the Prime Minister can call the election anytime during the confirmation process. It seems to me that even the legal confirmation process will not complete confirmation, right? So that the country is at a place where if an election is called anytime between now and, let us say, and I'm just suggesting March next year, that the list will still not be cleansed. And we'll be using a list of March 2025, which will not have new voters, according to what I'm hearing you say, right? And which will not have confirmed voters. So verify that for me. Because already in my humble view, and I do not have the law form to quote it for you, I should have brought it. Okay? And Sebs, you know that we raised that with Dennis Byron as well, as far as that's concerned. When you begin to look at this thing realistically, it means that will be in agony for quite a few more months before we have a sanitized list for people to vote on. And I really would like to ask you, what is the commission and your office is going to do to encourage people to confirm? I do not think a few appearances on radio and MO News will cut it, quite honestly. I have been speaking to people from all political spectrums who says, I'm not going in that margin, from all sides. Because as far as they're concerned, what am I going to do there? And I'm asking you, what is your office willing to do with all the load you have? right? What are you willing to do to ensure that our people get to do this thing and you get to give us a sanitized list so that there could be, we can look forward to a general election with something that is fair.
Okay, I know there have been concerns about the number of persons who have confirmed thus far after 6 months, but I believe that some persons may wait till the latter part of the confirmation, because in speaking to a number of persons, they keep saying, I have time. I have time. Oh, it's not till October the confirmation period ends. That's what you hear, the consensus on the ground when you speak to people. Even family members, sometimes you say, have you been confirmed? But we have up till October this year, so I will have time. So I am predicting that towards closer to the end, we're going to have a rush at the confirmation centers. And I will let the communication specialists tell you of some of the plans that we have for sensitizing the public. I want you to know that we have gone through the length and breadth of Dominica in the old style way of using a PA system, and we have gone through communities by night, stopped, give announcements with the PA system, sensitizing persons. We have gone, we have given flyers, we have gone to all communities for Dominica from the very beginning to sensitize the old way that it used to be done, with a loudspeaker on a vehicle, and then you stop where you see a crowd like by shops, etc. You engage people, you speak with them, tell them what is required, what it is all about, the confirmation period. Not yet. Because of the feedback. I was just a minute. Yes, I wasn't quite finished. It's just the feedback that got that distracted. So I will allow the communication specialists to give you some of the ideas that we have for, sensitizing the public about the confirmation process and why it's important to be confirmed.
After 6 months of the process and meeting people on the ground, like Ms. Joseph said, we spent most of December, October, November passed, and we realized that we needed to meet people on the ground. We spent most of December going through every constituency, every community on the island, and we didn't spare anything. So we met people, we spoke with people, we got the feedback. A lot of them were appreciative of being able to get the information directly from us. And we were able to get information that we could analyze and find out why people, what they're waiting for, why they have not gone to get confirmed. And overwhelmingly, a lot of people said, we have time, or in some instances, people were like, well, explain to us why we need to do it or what the process is about. So we use that opportunity to explain to people what the process is about, why the process is pertinent. And with the issue of we have time, like Ms. Joseph said, this is our culture. So we expect that there's going to be a rush. If we had, you said 45,000 people that you, so if we had 15, 14,000, and the next half that's 30, plus the rush that we expect. And we also use the information that we have to analyze the age groups and the areas where people are confirming or not confirming. And what we've done with that is use that information to now tailor our communications going forward to meet these people. So we have found that a lot of the young people are not just doing things for doing things sake. So they are the more curious group. So they want to know why we need to do it. They want to know what it's about. They want to know the information. They want to know the laws that guide it. They want to know what it means for me. They want to know, but what do I get out of it? And when I say get out of it, they want to know, well, if I confirm or if I register in some cases, what does it mean for the nation? Can I actually make a difference? So now what we're doing is tailoring communications to meet the groups where we have noticed that confirmation numbers are a bit lower, which like I said is with the younger people, to get the information to them. And so from month end, then we'll be launching more drives, more campaigns tailored to those groups.
Just wanted to make a comment on the Pastor Rodney asked a question about the change in the law, the SRO. Um, this is an electoral process, and I think a lot of people looked at it on one side, the ease of persons being confirmed, rather than what we are involving. It's an electoral process. Are you aware that someone can walk in to a confirmation center and present a birth certificate without a photo ID? Okay? I believe a photo ID is very, very important. And the photo ID, there was a gentleman, okay? There was a gentleman in a particular village who we got information from a registering officer. That person had died, passed. And the person walked in to the center with their ID to get confirmed. And I believe the commission took a decision to kind of, make it easy for persons who didn't have IDs. And I think because of the number of calls that we got via the media and, direct, that persons were saying, look, there are persons in the community and they do not have IDs. They cannot afford to get an ID at this point. They cannot afford to get a passport. I think that was taken into consideration for ease. But it's an electoral process, and I believe an ID was very important in that, in presenting yourself to a polling station, or a confirmation center to get confirmed. I work with a birth certificate. No, well, we can work with a photo ID. Okay, we work with the picture, but it was removed for the birth certificate, and that part was removed at first. And it was when we go to the bank, to open an account. We are asked for at least two IDs. And persons were saying, oh, we do not have IDs, we cannot get confirmed. But these are the same persons when you go to the bank and the bank asks for the requirements. No, no, they ask for IDs. So somebody said to me, the young people, they use their parents, they when they go in, they have their parents' credit card. They don't have bank accounts. But I think so when we go to the banks and so on, we meet requirements. We meet requirements. So this was a requirement, but based on the change came as a result of the cries of the public. And the persons were saying, look, we have elderly people in our midst, they do not have social security, they do not have driver's license, they do not have a passport, they're going to be left behind with the process. So I think based on that, the commission took a decision to make it a little easy for persons to be able to apply for confirmation.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that that was already in the law. So it was already in the law. And the commission amended it to say you should only come with an ID. Am I correct?
Yes, it was.
Right.
But there are questions. There are questions on that. The same. There are questions that people have. When it pertains to probably justice of peace in the community or so. Persons have questions. As we know, we may have justice of peace on either sides. And persons, I think this is where the concern came, that you go to like the justice of peace, say, let us say, I'll just say, I'm a party, I'm a great party, and justice of peace is on my side, would just, go ahead. And so I think that is the concern that it brought to the whole process. And we wanted the process to be, at the end of it, that we have a cleansed list and that due diligence was taken in compiling the list. So I think that's where it came from, Pastor Rodney. And because of the cries, it was the commission took a decision. Let us break it down and make it a little easier. So I can understand maybe the confusion it brought to the populace, that you ask for one thing and then you do an SRO and then you do another SRO. But all we want at the end of, we want to encourage Dominicans to be confirmed so that we can, as you said, so we can compile our list, that we will move from 14,190 to 45, 50, if needs be.
Yes, good afternoon. Two quick things. One is related to what you had just said. I find it a misappropriate analogy between the bank and voting. If we're looking for the most participation in the democratic process as possible, and we know that many of our young people not only do not have access to the ID easily because of the cost, but economically we don't necessarily have those opportunities available to them, but we want them involved in the democratic process, then it seems that the Electoral Commission could also, in the same mobile unit, approach the youth to verify identity, could approach the youth to make a photo ID for them one time when you're asserting that this is their identity, and therefore bring them into that democratic process. The disenfranchisement and the cynicism, even amongst our youth, is such that if the Electoral Commission is a neutral body, its goal should be to approach the youth and draw them into that, not require them to have gone for an ID and then come to the Commission. Just a thought. And secondly, a question of clarification, because I really have not heard any comment on this. For Dominican citizens that live abroad, that reside abroad, how does this affect their ability to vote? Will they be voting in this next election? Will they be part of this reconfirmation process? And how would that work then? And will there be any kind of address to the situation of people voting who are citizens but do not reside in the country under the term of office that they would be voting for politicians for? Which of course is a concern for many of us, as that can swing an election and affect those of us who are under the administration after.
Okay, I will attempt to answer your question as best as possible.
Thank you.
Although I would have preferred our chair to Duncan Stowe, the lawyer himself, to. But what I will say to you, the law makes accommodation for every Dominican on the voters list as of May 2025. Therefore, if you leave overseas and you come to Dominica to get confirmed, I cannot deny you from being confirmed. Okay, so that is where I will. That is how I will answer the question. I'll stop here. I cannot deny, by law, I cannot deny you from being confirmed, because the law makes accommodation. It's right here. It didn't. There are no exceptions saying if you live overseas. It says that Dominican citizen on the list, a voter on the list of May 2025, you are entitled or you are eligible to be confirmed.
So they have to come back the island to do this confirmation process, or will they be doing that over a computer from where they reside for?
They will have to come back to the island to get confirmed. There's no confirmation overseas. No confirmation overseas. Okay? So,
Yes, good afternoon. Madam Chief Elections Officer, you have to be categorized as a very brave and courageous public servant. I was in the public service, and I understand and understood what it meant to operate with integrity. And for you to be here this afternoon, it's challenging for you. But I have not been impressed with what I hear, not with necessarily what you said or who you are, but I'm just not impressed with the process. I'll tell you why. Because we're sitting here and we are making it appear that confirmation started 15th of October. The electoral process started 15th of October. And we forget the travails that Dominicans have gone through, the historical travails that we've gone through, advocating for electoral reform from 2005. We must not forget that. And then in 2008, we had this famous email. And then we had Honorable Mia Motley. She was in the opposition. She came here and she did work for us. And then we had advocacy on the road. And some of us are now before the courts, because we were advocating for free and fair elections in Dominica. And then we had the appointment of Sir Dennis Byron. And Sir Dennis Byron wrote the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition on the 6th of November 2022 to say that the first phase of his report will be available and a draft legislation will be able to go to Parliament in December of 2022. And by March and April of 2023, the second phase and the second bit of legislation will be. So by May of 2023, we would have had the laws. The Constitution says that any law that impacts and impinges on the electoral process, that process must come to the Electoral Commission for review. And then we heard the Honorable Prime Minister trivialize that provision in the Constitution by saying he is not bound by the recommendations of the Commission. That's insulting to us. It's insulting. And let me just say to you, ma'am, you probably have the biggest job in Dominica, because it is through your job the Prime Minister gets his own. Okay? And yet we have it in the reverse, that the Prime Minister recently told us that you have to do what you have to do, and he has to do what he has to do, and if he does not call an election, then he would be violating the Constitution. No, the Constitution belongs to us, and we are not ready for an election in Dominica presently, from what you say. We're not ready. And I go back to Sir Byron's letter of the 6th of November and the timelines he set. And we dilly-dally to come to March 19th of 2025, and we pass the law. But ma'am, in May of 2024, the Prime Minister told us he sent the draft legislation to your offices. You were not there at the time, I think. But it's a commission. So once you sit there, you are the commission. That was sent. By June, he told us that the commission had asked for an extension of time. This is short history, so you probably know it. And he said, okay, I'll give you extra time. And in September, the commission seemed to have sent its recommendation, which we have not seen. But my expectation in those recommendations would have addressed all of what you have just spoken to this afternoon. Everything. That is to say, if you give us the law in October, we were asking for re-registration. So I want to know what is the overall cost difference between a total registration of everybody in Dominica as opposed to confirmation. Because I do not know where I am at the moment. I have a variant of confirmation, and I got Shodo, nice done, and so on, and blessings. Now I'm asked to do another one, but it does not have the Shodo and the nice dresses and so on and the blessings. So I am annoyed. But I would like to know what it is the commission recommended to the government when it sent back its recommendation as per its constitutional responsibility that would cause the Prime Minister now to go to Parliament in December of 2024 and present the first readings of the 3 bills, and then in March. What did you recommend? And I am taking it that recommendation should be your preparatory work. As soon as you get the law, you would be off and running. But that's not what I'm hearing this afternoon. That's not what I'm hearing at all. What I'm hearing is that you are playing catch up. And the communications officer, you're right, man. I'm not a mathematician. I did arithmetic at school. 1 and 1 is 2. That is as far as I can go. This x plus y equals z. I don't understand that. You understand? I'm being truthful with you. I only know arithmetic. I would have expected that your recommendations would have spoken to the issue of your preparation. That if you got the law at a particular time, within a particular time frame, you would be able to deliver on the registration. I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing that if we go into October, so we're preparing for a mass rush on us in October. That is not enough, because there is this provision in the Constitution that grants the Prime Minister the authority to call an election at any time. And every one of us in Dominica knows that the list that you're talking about of May 2025 is bloated. The CCJ in July of 2022 told us that the process in Dominica is tainted and that Dominica should not go into another election with that taint or additional taints. But we're not listening. So we're not respecting our own court or Apex Court. We're not doing that. We're not respecting the consultant that we appointed. And today we're here going around this thing. No, I just don't like what I'm hearing. Okay, I don't like it. But the final plea, because I will protest again, if the Prime Minister calls an election, I think it would be immoral, it would be illegal, it would be unethical for the Prime Minister to call an election in Dominica and just to quote that he has a provision under the Constitution that says he can call it at any time. And one of the things, the challenges to you and the Commission, that is peopled with 3 attorneys at law, one wearing silk. You should have the courage to tell the Prime Minister, we're not ready for an election, and if you call one, we are resigning en masse. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I want to commend the Business Forum for organizing this event here this afternoon. And I also want to commend the Chief Elections Officer for being here with us, and of course, the Communication Officer for being here with us. But as a people, we're accustomed to doing things properly. We've had before electoral commissions, and they have worked with dignity, order, professionally, and the people of Dominica have respected them. We've had elections officers, and we worked with them and respected them. And when we speak of things, it's not because we have bad intention, it's because we want things to improve and happen properly. Now, when people who have responsibility fail to do their job well, others find themselves in problem. I say this to say that in 2022, when we heard from Sir Dennis Byron, we saw what was happening, and then the Prime Minister called the election. We formed the ERC, Election Reform Coalition. And the idea was to create a professional approach to it, because there are a number of persons who wanted to have violence, wanted to do things, and we felt to quell that, let us bring together all the civic-minded groups, the political parties, so when we approach the authorities, we approach them collectively, not that party there, that group there. And I must say thank you in a big way to the president, starting with Sovereign, Charles Sovereign, and then this present president who met the ERC in that discussion. We have never had a meeting with cabinet. We have never had a meeting with the Electoral Commission, and we requested for that over and over. And I'll tell you something, when there is dialogue, at the end of the process, you have what you call a much better finished product that we all understand, we participate, we agreed, and we passed. And therefore, all the pressure that you're having today would not have been there. And because the commission failed in doing a job that it is tasked to do, a few of us was arrested. I slept in prison my whole life, first time in my life. I came to Parliament, stand outside of Parliament. I didn't throw stone, I didn't curse the police, I didn't fight anybody, but I found myself arrested and slept in the jail for one night and before the court. And the reason for that is because the Electoral Commission did not do the work it was tasked to do. Because the commission is the referee between the politicians and the people. And we as stakeholders, it's always important for us to have dialogue. When I'm hearing a number of persons you approach for confirmation and registration, they're saying to you, if there is crookery in these things, and we have no confidence in this thing, no trust, for me to do it, you must pay me. That's what you're getting out there. You must pay me. There's a lot of that going out. And the trouble is, confirmation and registration should not be a competition among the political parties. People should be free to register or to confirm. And when parties get involved in paying people to register or to confirm, it corrupts the process. And then people now are looking for a gift now to do it. So it makes the burden more difficult, make it more difficult, more burdensome, and so forth. And I remember listening to the chief elections officer in St. Kitts when there was an issue about bribery and corruption in the process. He came openly and made a statement and said that this should not happen and use his office with authority, and all parties across the board understand. Similarly, it happened in St. Vincent recently when the election was taking place. The chief elections officer, if a woman, came out and made a statement. And I'm saying this to say that there are a lot of things that's affecting the process and make it more difficult. And I'm so happy you're here. You know why? If today is an opportunity to build a good relationship between the public, electoral office, the electoral commission, we must seize that day and make it work, because, as I said, when people fail to do their work that they take up to do, others find themselves in difficulties. Because if the commission had worked properly, I would never find myself being arrested and sleeping in the jail for one night. Thank you so much.
Madam Chief Elections Officer, you made a statement which is very conflicting. You said you spoke to other electoral offices in the region. Now, Dominica has reconfirmation. They have full electoral reform. So what you're saying there does not make sense to me. It's conflicting. And it passed as a lie to me. Number two, you keep stressing on software developers. I would like to know, where did you also see software developers? Because sometimes in the future, it might create a problem for us. So we need to know how you all went about that, because technology today, it can work both ways, for you and against you. And you don't know who is doing what. I know when I worked in the Electoral Commission in Antigua, the then commission, they worked with the Jamaica Electoral Commission and sourced all their material from the Jamaica system. But here you have reconfirmation. You don't have that same system. You have run through reconfirmation and we do not know what is going on, what it is. So it is not passing as something genuine to me. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Okay, let me just comment on that. You spoke about when I said that we are doing a survey for the Caribbean. I'm talking about registration. I'm not talking about confirmation. Confirmation is ongoing, and we were speaking about registration post confirmation. So I said we would be gathering information and see what is best practice and present to the commission. That's what I said. And I don't think that's a bad idea because there are groups, there are different groups in the region who lean on each other and gain experience, information is shared.
That is why we should have electoral reform in full electoral reform.
Let me continue, please.
Once I finish.
Okay. Okay, we could go to the next question.
Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Joseph, for being here. Thanks to the head table for organizing. First question. Have you ever acknowledged publicly that the suspension in registration is a breach of the law?
I will not answer. I can't answer this question. You asked me whether it's a breach of the law.
No, I'm asking if you've ever made a public acknowledgement that the suspension of registration was in breach of the very act that was passed last March. Can you do so now?
No, I can't. I will not.
Why is that?
I came out in the media some time ago and I explained to the media, I don't know if many persons heard me on that, and what I said, or what is the view, that when the new law was passed, we could not operate registration under the old system because a new law was now in place. No, there was no transition process or period for you to move from the old into the new.
Whose responsibility was that?
Can I finish? Okay. Therefore, if we had registered persons after the passage of the law under the old system, that would have been, somebody would have taken us to task. Number two, there was no way of issuing this law. The way that registration numbers were generated under the old system is completely different in this law.
So if I understand all that, I'm just asking the simple question whether the suspension of the registration process as required by law, the fact that it was suspended was in breach of our law. It's a very simple question, which has a very simple answer. And the answer is yes. And I don't know why you won't acknowledge that. Yeah? And so I'm very, very disappointed that you will not simply acknowledge a fact. And I have never thought as you tried to clarify very strongly at the start that there is a bias in your office or your team. I have never said that, I have never stated that, and I do not have a reason to think so. However, the incompetence with which the act has been implemented creates suspicion of bias, and that is a self-inflicted wound. Okay? So it is not that people inherently think that the electoral office is taking sides. it is that what has occurred has created a lack of trust and suspicion that you may be taking sides. And if you will not even acknowledge here today that the suspension was a breach of law, that doesn't create trust, Chief Election Officer. That creates more suspicion of bias. So someone said that it was very brave of you to come here. I don't think so. I think you need a lot more courage as the Chief Election Officer. And you need to acknowledge things as they are. So the implementation of the law has been in breach of itself for over a year. And then on March the 9th, I think you started again. But you must acknowledge publicly that you were in breach of the law for that period of time. You must, and so as a follow-up, do you agree that had voter registration not been suspended, that the results of the city and the village council elections may have been different? Can you acknowledge that publicly? Or is that something you also will not answer? You will not answer that. You do not have the courage to be the Chief Elections Officer if
No,
you,
sir,
if you
I
do not
know how many persons would have walked in to.
I didn't say if they would have been different. I said if they could have been
I would
different.
not have known that. I would not have known that. Whether new registration was open or not, whether that would have changed the dynamics of the city council election, neither the village council elections. We have seen a very low turnout in a lot of village council elections.
But can you guarantee that it would not have yielded a different outcome?
I cannot guarantee the opposite either.
Well, exactly, which confirms the first question, that it could have had a different result. If you say that you cannot.
But can you confirm it that it would have a different?
And I have never said that. I said it could have had a different result, and we need to acknowledge these things, and that is the problem that we have.
This is like an abusive relationship between the government and the people, in which the people have been abused.
Excuse me. I'm waiting. Please. You have to take a turn.
Now, you also said that there is an acknowledgement within your office that the rate of the approval of confirmations is not what the targeted rate of approval should be. Is that correct?
No,
that's what you just said.
I didn't say that. I said that there was an evaluation.
Sorry.
And
there was a proposed rate.
Right. So that's what we are working towards.
Can you share with us what the actual rate is?
I don't have
proposed?
no, I don't have the figures of my head. I don't have the figures of my head.
Okay.
But I just know that we're adding an improvement that will make approvals quicker.
I've asked you to acknowledge two things and you refuse to acknowledge them. Will you acknowledge that the rate of approval is not what it should be?
I still will not say so.
Will you acknowledge that voter ID cards should be ready already? Since we have started the confirmation process on October 15th of last year, the law says voter ID cards will be issued once the confirmation is approved. Will you acknowledge that system should be running?
Can you find a section of the law that says that? Because I searched the law for a time frame by which cards, that if it made mention of.
It does not give a specific
It does
time
not.
frame,
It does not. And as I said to you earlier, that the persons who built the software, they even advise that we should issue cards at the end. I said that earlier.
You did.
Right.
But the law doesn't say that either.
The law doesn't say that.
But the law simply, the spirit of it is that after you're approved, you'll get a card. It doesn't say if it's in 10 days or if it's 100 days. But obviously it is after approval. That's what it says. But it doesn't say 5 days or 10 days. But the spirit, the interpretation of that is that within a reasonable time after you're approved, you'll get a card. Will you acknowledge that, Ms. Joseph? Will you acknowledge what is happening now is not a reasonable time in terms of the issuance of voter ID card?
I still cannot say that because I still cannot say that.
So these are 4 questions.
I cannot say that based on the fact that The law does not give a time frame, okay? And their interpretations, different lawyers interpret laws in different ways, okay? So you may think that it should have been right away, but I did say to you that we will advise not to do it at the end of the process, but a decision
That's
was
not
taken.
what the law says, Ms. Joseph. Now, we were in breach of the law for over a year, and that doesn't matter. That is what did the PM say? That is water below the bridge. It doesn't matter. And we're in breach of the law. And October 15th is also the law. But that matters. Yeah. So my appeal to you is to be courageous, acknowledge facts, acknowledge truth, and begin to inspire a level of confidence and trust from the population. Because what is happening now is that people have lost trust, and you have to accept your responsibility in that equation. That's all we're asking of you. Regain the trust of the public by being truthful, by owning the mistakes that have been made, and by seeing how we're going to fix it. Not by giving all these long explanations about software developers and this working and showing cards you didn't like. When that law was passed, the commission should have been ready for the implementation. And they were not ready. And that is why I've called for all of the members of the commission to step down.
That's right.
Not because I have
I
anything
agree.
against them. They're my friends. Several of them are my friends. It is that the public needs to trust the people and the process who have the responsibility. Yeah.
May I say something, please? I think it's my turn now. First of all, I must introduce myself because I don't think you know me. My name is Olujide Ulrich Delisol, born from Scottsdale. I spent 40 years in England, and I had 4 careers, including IT and management and science. I'm a chemistry graduate. I've got a master's in strategy. I say that so that you're aware of where I'm coming from. I've listened very carefully, and I thank Mr. Nasi for his contribution. I think you're sounding like a top lawyer, man. That was forensic, the way you approached it. I believe you're a lawyer. I know nothing about you. I understand the difficulty of your situation, and I am sympathetic. But at the end of the day, you owe a greater contribution to Dominica, not to a man, not to a party. Your role is to represent the Dominican people and to ensure that democracy continues to exist in Dominica. You have failed in that regard. I'm sympathetic towards you. I know the pressure that is being put on you. So I'm sympathetic from that point of view. But I'm not sympathetic that you're not courageous enough to stand in the public with everyone around and say, Mr. Skerritt, I will not go against the Dominican people and against democracy. That's what I'm going to say.
Well said, sir. Very much so. Okay, thank you very much.
Bonnier will take one more question and then so that we could start wrapping up this segment of the discussion.
Thank you, Ivo and Gregor, for your intervention. You made a statement that an individual went to confirm with a dead person's. Oh, I thought I understood that. But I'm very much concerned here because the confirmation process seems to be going on only in Dominica. Now, you know we're in court with the commission. 2 of us are in here who's in court with the commission. There are some 4,000 people that were petitioned over the last 3 elections. And petitions were never heard because these people didn't qualify to be on the list. And they remained on the list, and they will be confirmed if they come around.
confirm. My concern is the electoral list has to be approved by you if they go and call an election. Now, the composition of the Electoral Commission is in violation of the basic principles of public trust and conflict of interest. You have two individuals who could only be an agent to sell passports because of the Prime Minister. He's the one who issues permits. Okay, and I support Gregor when he says that they should resign. One of the biggest concerns that I have is I heard a member of the commission state that cabinet had to approve certain persons who are involved in the confirmation process. Is that so?
I don't know if that's so. Which you heard that publicly?
I heard a member of your commission made that statement in public, okay, on live radio. Can you confirm that? Now, I just want to tell you the trust in the commission has gone very low, especially the members of the commission. The law says, the constitution, says that no individual or group of persons should have any control over the commission. There was a vacancy in the chairmanship, and I heard our Prime Minister mention that he's in discussion with Duncan Stowe to take up the chairmanship. And the Constitution says, Madam Chief Election Officer, that the President will appoint the chairman in his or her own deliberate judgment. So he is tainted in my mind as the Chief Election Officer. Do you think as an individual that your chairman should remain in office as the chairman of the Electoral Commission? Because it taints your establishment, as far as I'm concerned.
Sir, do you really expect me to answer that question?
Well, if as the Chief Election Officer,
I think your question, you should not have directed that question to me.
You want me to take back the question?
Yes. Ask me questions on the operations. Ask me questions about the confirmation process, about the list. You don't ask me these questions.
I will tell you why I asked you that question. I'll take it back, but I'll tell you why I asked that question. I asked you that question because you have to verify that the list is correct. And if they call an election and everybody who's supposed to be on the list is not there, or anybody who should not be on the list is there, the list is unconstitutional because it does not meet the requirements of our Constitution. And that's your responsibility.
Let me correct you there. When the quarterly supplementary list is published at the first quarter, every quarter, there is a period for objections.
Yes.
So members of the public they can look at the list will be published, the registration list. So as of June 1st, all new persons who registered, that list will be made public. And you can look at the list and you can make an objection, and there's a period in which you can make that objection to the Chief Election Officer.
We know that, but the Commission has not been doing that for the last 4 elections because we have petitions that were photocopied, received by the Electoral Commission, that were never heard to date, and they were heard during the required time period. they would never, and the people still remain on that list. It is tainted. Okay? So I want to tell you, I want to ask you a question. The list, when you confirm the list, that is correct, and everybody on it should be, then the president has to sign it off. Because, you know, what I want to know is, will you tell the Prime Minister, are you bold enough to tell the Prime Minister, if you know there's several people who are not confirmed on the list that you have that applied, will you tell him that the list is not ready? Because you are required to do that by law. So he can call elections, but if the list is not ready.
Which list are you referring to? The confirmation list?
Yes.
If election is called, the confirmation list will not be required as of before before the confirmation period ends. If election is called, the list that is used is the May 2025 plus the supplementary list, which is new voters.
Right. So you see what I'm saying is.
I want to say something, so let me just interject. Let me just interject there.
The election will be unconstitutional.
I want to interject there for a minute, please. We had a lot of talk about registration, okay? During the period where registration was not taking place. Okay? I personally, as Chief Election Officer, I pushed to do everything in my power to get registration on stream because there were challenges. We could not use, we had no means of generating a new registration number. Now, if I were to take an application under the old law and I register someone, I would not be able to give a new registration number. Number two, the supplementary, the lists that we had to present, or there are certain lists, okay, that because of the confirmation period, there's a technicality in the list. The list, even if we took the application, they would not be on a list. So even if the people came in and they registered, they would not, it would have been illegal, number one, to take them under the old forms. And I want you to know too that going through the law, when I came in as Chief Election Officer, one of the first things I did was to take the draft laws and I went through them with a fine comb. Okay, when it was passed and we started the development of the software. There were so many areas that had to be amended. There were so many mistakes in the things that were left out that had to be amended. And we took time and we sat, me as Chief Election Officer, and we went through, and along with the lawyers guided, we went through. Okay, there are a number of areas that we had to amend. There were certain things that were left out that had to be included, okay, in the law. It's a new law. And sometimes people just think, well, you get a new piece of law, you can just take it and just pass it, and it's functional right away with everything. But you have to understand sometimes when you're going through, I worked in the procurement department for a number of years, and we had an old law, which we repeal, and another one, and you find you had a law and you find there's certain things that not workable. Is while you're going through it, you see where certain areas could be amended so that it could be workable. And that is what happened when we had this new law. There are lots of different areas. While we went through the software, we saw so many areas that had to be amended. And this took time because I had to physically have lawyers sitting with me, the lawyers sitting with me in a whole day session, right? We're going through things as they're pulling out stuff from the building the software, and they're giving us demos. You've seen certain things that's lacking and missing and needed to be amended. And it took a lot of time to put those things on stream. And people wanted registration right away, but it could not, because building a software, having a piece of legislation, and implementing it just like that. Yes, but having a software to match and to tailor it according to the legislation is very, it's not as easy as we look at it. Okay? It's not as easy.
Hi. You made a very interesting statement. You said if you had proceeded with the manual registration because of the number ID, that would have been illegal. But you will not say that suspending the registration was also illegal, which for me is really interesting.
Mr. Nassif,
Yes, Ms.
the
Joseph.
very persons who were asking for registration, okay, using the old system would have been the very
All
same
I
person
want you to do is
that would have taken the
acknowledge that
chief elections to court for functioning.
But we can take you to court now because it was illegal.
I'm just saying, these are the very persons that would have taken the chief elections to
So
court.
the other thing I'd like to say is I am in the software business. That's my
That's
principal
good.
business. I implement very complex software systems for businesses, and I know the bugs, I know the painstaking process, I know the training, I know the gaps between what you think you're getting and what you actually end up with. I understand all that, and I sympathize with all that. But it is very simple. A law was passed, and you were not ready to implement it. And that's the bottom line. So I sympathize with the excuses, but I don't accept them because this is too important to be messing up in this way. So we were not ready for the passage of the legislation in its current form. If the legislation said that once this is passed, we have X amount of time to get the system right? And if that was part of the law, which it was not, the law assumes certain things on implementation, including continuous registration. So I understand all the issues, I sympathize with you, but you must have some courage to accept the failures, own them, and regain the trust of the Dominican people. It's that simple.
Correct.
You know something, I was very disappointed when registration began because every day people called and they were asking for registration, and I pushed personally for registration. I pushed, okay? I won't go into details, but I pushed for registration to come on stream. And I was very disappointed at the start of registration. I was expecting a flood of persons because of the cries that I heard. And to date, only 660 persons have come to the centers for registration. So where are all the persons who are asking for registrations?
Please, I think we are going well. Yes, Mr. Dyer.
Yeah, my apology, I came late. And I'm listening and I have been following. We have spent thousands, maybe millions of dollars for electoral reform. And let me say that I sympathize with you, Chief Election Officer, because you have not even faced an election yet. I am of the strong view that election is governed and authorized. The authority for election is the Election Commission under the Constitution. The framers of the Constitution never envisaged any political leader to be in charge of election, because that would be nonsense. When I came in here, I'm sad to see you there because I expected the chairman of the commission to be here sitting. So the commission has shown disrespect for the people of Dominica. I am saying that all this money that has been spent for electoral reform, it is not working. It is not working. You are disenfranchising young people who have the entitlement now to register to vote. Thousands of them.
I understand the registration of voters was suspended. You couldn't, the Constitution doesn't allow a suspension of registration of new voters. It's a continuous process. Time is short, but I am suggesting that we in 1980, in 1979, we had a re-registration in Dominica. It took only about 6 or 7 months. In Antigua, some time ago, they had re-registration. It took only about 7 months. I am suggesting because the election reform and the money that we have spent, it is not working. People are not going for confirmation. People are not going for registration. We should do re-registration where you have to go to the homes. Go to the homes and register people. Because the essence of this is to have a free and fair election.
Democracy.
And a free and fair election means one man, one vote. So with all this talk and all this money that is spending, I am suggesting that we have enough time to go on a re-registration. Parliament can do that. And let us have Dominica, and let us put Dominica in a place where we are going to allow the children and the children of future and those yet unborn to meet a Dominica that we met, but better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
Re-registration, my recommendation is we should go for re-registration. We have enough time to do it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Okay. Let me.
Sorry, Mr. Mackenzie, I just wanted to add, because Babs and I had extensive discussion on what has taken place and what is going on now. And
He wants to stand behind the column.
no, sorry. I can be seen by anyone. I heard Mr. Asif talk about his expertise in IT, etc., and that is commendable. Probably we needed somebody like that on the Electoral Commission. What I'd like to address was the last point I spoke with Babs. Is the question of the voters list as exists before is corrupt in that there are many persons who are dead who are there. Doesn't the registry submit on a monthly basis all deaths? And shouldn't there be a link, software link, to ensure that when that is submitted by law, that begin a process of cleaning up the list? Because one of the things that people mistrust is that people who are dead are voting. I don't know how that happens. Only one resurrection I know of. Okay. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. But we have to.
In addition to my recommendation, the only new thing is voter ID cards should be issued, and there's no difficulty with issuing voter ID cards.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think we will appreciate that. And on behalf of the Business Forum, we have to apologize for the absence of the chairman of the commission, because you will agree with me that quite a number of questions that were, Sir, please, hey, let's try to get it cool. Yes, quite a number of the questions that were directed at the Chief Elections Officer were really not supposed to be at her. It should have been actually at the commission. And we have to, I must say that we are very grateful that you came in today. But we should also recognize that there are quite a number of things that are happening with the voter registration process, or the electors registration process, or putting together a cleansed electors list for the Commonwealth of Dominica, that the processes that are in right now are facing quite a number of challenges. And there seems to be a need for some level of communication, mobilization, on the education on the part of the public, because I'm sure that those of us who are here today learned quite a bit of what is actually happening inside to get a better understanding of the difficulties that you face as the chief elections officer, because in your comments, I think you said the anticipation after the confirmation process can be corrected. We're looking at about 55,000. Is it? No, I'm just trying. No. Yes. So which means that if we're looking at about to have after the confirmation process is completed, to have about 55,000 persons confirmed, it would mean that this would just be about what? A percentage of the 74,000 people that are presently on the existing list. Yeah? And we have, because I mean, and I think Ms. Joseph, this type of conversation should continue, because I think it's only, we deliberately tried not to, we deliberately decided not to have this interaction carried live, because we just wanted people to be able to speak their minds in an environment where they were free without those who did not come having to cast aspersions. But because there are quite a number of things that we have to start looking at. So, for example, if at the end of the confirmation process, which is the 15th of October, plus the additional 3 months that may be given to facilitate it, a substantial percentage of persons do not confirm, then we go back to square one, where everybody who did not confirm would have to be registered as a new voter. And this, well, I need not say more, because you can understand the complication that this will take, because if 20,000 people confirm in this process and all the others did not confirm after that, what is going to be done to actually facilitate the registration, the new registration of people who were on the list already? So I think there are quite a number of things had to be taken into consideration when even the law was passed, and even for the implementation stage. It was not done. And I sincerely hope that some of the recommendations that came, or some of the comments that came from the audience this afternoon, will be taken on board and transferred to the powers that be. I would imagine that the main power should be the Electoral Commission, and then the Electoral Commission should be passing it on to the other powers. But let me ask Mr. John, I do not know if you have to give some, if you want to give some closing. No? You want to do a wrap up?
I just want to encourage us here this afternoon to encourage your family and friends to get confirmed. And it is the democratic right of every citizen of Dominica to participate. And one thing we would not like to see, that persons did not get confirmed. And then they cannot participate in an election, and then you would hear there's an election, and then you cannot do anything about it. And the midnight that we had before we had this in the law, the old law, where once the writs are issued, then you had up to midnight to get registered. That is no longer there. So all young persons eligible, 18 years and over, encourage them to get registered. Just as you would like to see a compiled list of persons at the end of the confirmation period, so too I would like to see a compiled list of persons to know that, that we have a fair amount of Dominicans who can participate in the democratic process, and in the event that there is an election. So I challenge you today to encourage persons, those that you know.
How many of us here have actually registered? I have registered. Confirmed, yeah. I have confirmed. So you see, even among us, they're not enough. Even among the people agitating for the job, we need to confirm, and we need to get all the people on the opposition to confirm.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Obonyo. Yes, folks, let me again, on behalf of the Business Forum, Mr. John Robin will give you official thank you on behalf of the Business Forum. He's the president of the Manufacturers Association. But let me put on my own, personally, Mr. Bob and all the other folks who helped in organizing this activity. Thank you, Ms. Joseph, for being, I hope you found it being a worthwhile exercise. and you know the comments were frank, and then we could, I am from the, my own profession is one where I am subjected. I know what criticism is. It is one thing when you design something and you think this is the best thing that you have designed, and when you put it to the public scrutiny, you have to go and hide your face. So this is what I am accustomed to every day. So let me ask Mr. Robin to give the official thank you to Miss Joseph and Miss Julian. And please do not go away. We have the second segment with Miss Annie Edwards will make the presentation. Okay, Mr. Robin.
Okay, it is often said that one effort is worth more than 1,000 intentions. In that regard, I want to really thank Ms. Anthea Joseph for being so brave to come. And not only but not only coming, because what I've observed is that most time you have appointment with folks in her capacities, especially when Dominica Business Forum call them. They do not show up. So I think I have much more respect for you today than I ever had before. I think this interaction today can best be described as very focused, intensive, informative, very insightful, revealing, and constructive. It really gave us a lot of food for thought, and I think it will resonate for years to come. This platform or to this engagement had to do with my involvement in the Dominica Business Forum. I'm the chair of the Dominica Manufacturers Association, and I am just from a meeting, our AGM we just had it today. I want to thank Ms. Anthea Joseph, the Chief Electoral Officer, for everything today. And I also want to thank my associate, Prisca Julian, the Communication Officer. I want to thank Mr. Sabra McKenzie for holding the fort. And I want to thank you, the participants, for being very forceful, but still very contained. And I think, all in all, it was a very good discussion. So we want to big up the Dominica Electoral Commission, the Dominica Business Forum, but also recognize Fort Young Hotel, the Dominican News Online, DBS, and in particular, Curtis Maffley is always there. We appreciate you, Curtis. We want to thank you, the participants that are here today, and also the participants online. And also, as we are here, we have certain prominent people in our midst. I don't want to miss them if I miss your name, don't take it personal. But I think Mr. Gregor Nassif, I appreciate your comment and your presence. Annie Edwards, I want to say I appreciate your presence. Thompson Fontaine, I appreciate your presence. Dr. Randy and Dr. Thompson, and I say Dr. Fontaine. And Mr. Henry, our elder, I appreciate your sentiment. I think this constructive forum which we have had today is the beginning of a lot to come. augurs well for what is needed. There are lots of questions, and the revealing aspect of this engagement today tells us very clearly that something needs to be fixed. We have to fix the system. And if we proceed in that manner, it will not go down well for us. So I want to thank you for speaking your mind, and I want to thank Ms. Anthea Joseph for listening, and not only just listening, but respecting everybody's opinion and giving them a polite and, I think, controlled response. Because you must also understand that she is in a very technical position. And I must say that you have handled yourself very well, and thanks for